All right. So beautiful Friday afternoon, summertime, August 18th. Wow, summer is winding down quicker than I would like to acknowledge. But yeah, so we're my wife is here for one more I'm sorry, two more nights in Canada. Um, and then she's heading back on Sunday, and then school's starting soon. I'm sure those with you with kids, I'm sure a lot of kids have already started back to school, certain parts of the country, depending on where you are. So anyway, trying to make the most of what's left of the summer, enjoying it. Um, so Chuck, watching, listening with one eye and one ear. There you go. So listen, we've been doing this session at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, on analyzing price action and volume. We're going to do some more of that today because I think it is hugely helpful. I know I know you've definitely benefited from it, as well as others, and I've received some uh, really nice emails from people who had participated in the free week who definitely benefited from it and enjoyed it. So we're just going to continue with that trend. But before we do, I want to first look at, let's go back and look at the market. So the market, it's 405. So the market's just closed. So let's take a look. I want to see how accurate my analysis was this morning. Those of you who were in the room this morning. Now, again, this is just one candle. It's one day, one candle. It does not make me Nostradamus. I'm not seeing, the future here. And as Yates and I just talked about, my crystal ball is does definitely not work. However, that said, if you look at what the markets did this morning or today, I said it would not surprise me if, so we're looking at the S&P right now. I said it would not surprise me if we went bearish initially and then turned around and went bullish and finished with some kind of a hammer on the markets. And coincidentally, that's exactly what happened. And so again, this comes back to just analyzing price action and volume, right? So price action, right? What are we looking at here on the S&P? Well, I pointed out that we're coming into a double bottom here. So we are coming into a support area. This line here was my previous level on the S&P that I had drawn that was showing the previous resistance, which we finally broke out of. And that was, if I were to scroll back a little bit, can't really see the whole thing, but that was here we go. I could go back further, but I think you get the idea, right? So here it was, we were up against it here, couldn't get through it here, finally got through it here. So the idea that we would come back and retest that area, right? Previous resistance becomes support, and retest that area. I pointed out that we had the 100 coming up here. And again, the retest doesn't have to be right to that line, right? There are no absolutes in trading. It's a zone, it's an area. So the fact that we were coming into a double bottom here, right? So when price came out of here initially and came down, right? This was the retest, right? Retest doesn't mean it's got to come all the way down. So the fact that we came up and we came back down, made a double bottom here, not surprising. And so in terms of what the market did today, we won't know until Monday rolls around, right? Until next week rolls around, what this hammer means. But for me, that tells me that there were definitely enough buyers looking at this area here thinking, okay, this is an area where, it's a good buy. Double bottom here, support down here. So we'll see what the market does next week, but this is exactly what I wanted to see today. And it did it, right? I said, let's see if we can sell off initially and then finish with some type of a hammer, right? So there's the S&P. Let's check out the Qs. Let's see how this ended up looking, right? Very similar. This was exactly what I said, double bottom. Again, keep in mind, the double bottom doesn't have to be exact, right? It's double bottom-ish, right? So this level here, right? Technically double bottom, right? It's also into a support area, right through here, right? So when I look at this and I go, okay, we can potentially double bottom here. Price can, poke down here. We do have the 100 coming up, and we did finish with a hammer. Now, again, could that hammer get broken? Of course it can, right? We can, to Yates's point, we can gap down on Monday and all this is, analysis goes out the window. But you need to be thinking about it. You need to look at this and come up with some type of thesis in terms of what you're thinking about next week. If you think it's going to go bullish, how are you going to trade it? What are you going to be looking for? So, that's me. And I this is exactly what I wanted to see today, what I thought was going to happen, and it happened. So the chart's doing what I wanted. Well, again, we'll see what happens next week. But I just want to point that out on the broader markets because it was a nice way to end the week. If we come in here and we look at the SPY and the Qs, SPY and the Qs, right? Same thing, double bottom, right? So we didn't come all the way down to here, but basically it's a double bottom, decent candle here, right? And again, you have the 100 coming up, right? So not a hammer, right? But still decent candle with volume, good volume behind it. Let's take a look at the Qs. Give me a second here. Let's see how the Qs are looking here. Okay. Very similar. Right. A little bit lower than here, but still double bottom and into this support zone here. Right. And decent volume. So again, are we out of the woods? Are we going to, just rampage bullish next week? I don't know. But the charts are to me are looking good for a potential bounce here. Right. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's at least what I am anticipating and what I'm going to be planning for. So that's just analyzing and look at things on the broader markets just to get a sense for what I'm going to, how I'm going to approach next week. But again, all this can go out the window come Monday morning if we have a big gap down. Okay. So let's dive into, I know a lot of you I know you were there this morning. What's interesting is, so I was on this morning from 9 to 11 and I got off at 11. I had errands to run. I had stuff to do with the family. So I wasn't able to even look at the markets from 11 until just now. So just interesting coming back and taking a look at the broader markets to see what they did. But let's take a look at a trade that we took today in the room that was on NVIDIA. And I want to walk through it because I know there was, I don't know if David is still here, but there was a couple questions as to why I was thinking about going bullish on this versus going bearish. And again, I don't know. I think it was David who was asking some questions on it when we were taking the trade. But let's go through it because, again, this is analyzing the price action and the volume is key, at least for my day trading. Okay. And specifically, again, what I'm looking for, and I know you know the answer. And Chuck, I think you've been here enough to hear it. And Martina, I don't know if Martina's here, but Martina always has the right answer. But I want to ask you, I'm just going to tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for double tops, double bottoms. Oh, Martina is here. Beautiful. Love it. So Martina, you could answer this, right? You know exactly what I'm looking for. But double tops, double bottoms, hammer at the bottom of a move with volume, shooting star at the top of a move with volume, right? And with volume is the key, right? I'm looking for volume spikes specifically. So let me go to this screenshot. So here's NVIDIA, right? So I still have my lines on this in terms of what the trade was. But let's just look at this real quick on the daily. Okay. So what I had looked for, right? What I initially looked for, yes, we had a gap down, right? It's a retest gap. So we had a bearish candle gapping down. So could it go lower? Of course, but Look at the size of this candle right here, right? Beautiful engulfing candle, big bullish candle. Then we had a gap up after that, profit taking likely, and then it's pulling back, right? And that's not surprising to see something pull back like that after making this kind of move. So today this morning I threw on the fibs. I'm just curious now where it got down to. So all right, so it got down a little bit lower in terms of this wick, but it got down a little bit lower than I would have normally liked to have seen. Like that 66 level, I don't know how well you can see it right here. That's 66. Here's the 61.8. That's typically where I look for. But if it gets below the 78.6, then I consider it broken, right? So if price action got below this 78.6, then I would expect it to go even lower. But really nice wick down today, right? So think about all the bears who got trapped in here, right, today. And specifically, we're going to look at where they got trapped through this move here. And this is on the 5-minute chart. So here's on the daily chart, again, a bearish candle gapping down. But the key thing is looking at this candle here, right? And the sentiment behind this candle. And the bulls are there, right? We do have earnings coming up. Be aware of that. Looks like earnings are on the 23rd. But we do have, if you just think about the sentiment of this candle, big bullish candle, gap up, this is just likely profit taking, right? And then you got more buying in there today. Look at the buying pressure, that hammer, right? That hammer right there, that lower wick is exactly what we traded today. So let's jump into the 5-minute chart. And I'll just expand it just to maybe see it a little bit better here. So NVIDIA opened up today, right? And NVIDIA and only a couple others were really moving, right? A lot of stuff was just going sideways. In the first, I don't know what, the first hour of the market was just chop city, right? From 9 to 10, even into 10:30, it was just a lot of chop. And the market itself was just sideways, not really doing a whole lot. And then, and so we were sitting on our hands. People were not complaining, but people were observing about how choppy, and sideways it was. And, and a lot of people were saying, hey, maybe this is a day just to sit on your hands and, and be patient. And I agreed. It was a perfect day to sit on your hands, be patient. But that doesn't mean that when a trade comes to you and it's what you're looking for, that you don't take it. Right. So that's what happened in my situation here. Right. I waited. And, and that's part of learning how to control FOMO. Right. So a lot of us sitting on your hands, you feel like you want to trade, but just clicking buttons because you feel like you should is allowing your emotions to get the best of you. You're not controlling your emotions. Your emotions are controlling you, right? Yeah, Win says good way to get broke. So practice, right? On days like this, practice sitting on your hands. Practice just exercising that muscle to, not do anything. And sometimes that's the best move. And it wasn't until it wasn't until the 10 o'clock hour, that's when we started really I started looking and seeing that there was a potential for a trade. Yeah, Chuck, you need to hear this. Yeah, I mean, a lot of us, we feel like because we're sitting here and we're in front of the computer that we should be clicking the buttons, that we should be trading. But sometimes, let's see, John says, I felt like a no trade day was going to happen. Yeah, right. And sometimes no trade is the best trade. And so it's just important to keep that in mind, especially for newer traders, right? For me, like I'm okay if I don't take a trade on a day, then so be it, because tomorrow or Monday there's going to be plenty of other opportunities. So I'm not gonna allow FOMO to get the best of me. And I'll tell you, I mean, honestly, like when you're on the microphone and you're running the room, you do feel a certain amount of pressure to find trades for people, right? But I also don't want people to lose money just because I'm, feeling like I need to find a trade for everyone. So it's kind of talk about FOMO, right? It's one thing to be on your side of this and, and having FOMO and not, taking a trade. It's another thing to be on this side of the microphone and feel like people are expecting you to be able to provide them with a trade. So it is interesting being in that position, but at the same time, it's like, I need to do right by myself, but I also need to do right by all of you and not take a trade just out of, boredom or because I feel like it should, right? So Win says right now I take 1 trade per day max. Teach me to be, what, Win, I love that. So let me read that again. Win says right now I take 1 trade per day max. It's teaching me to wait for better setups. Yeah, Win, I love that, right? Because and that's something that I will often recommend to coaching students. I'm like, look, what if you cut down your trading? Like I forget. I mean, recently I was coaching somebody who was taking like, anywhere from like, like 8 to 12 trades a day. I go and not being successful with it, right? Struggling, and I said, well, what do you think would happen if you cut that down? What if you limited yourself to 3 trades a day total, right? 3 trades a day, and then you're forced to look for the best setups, right? And then Chuck says that was me, and Win says, and I haven't traded anything but Tesla since July 1st. Yeah, and plus, so Win, oh, Chuck says that was me, meaning my coaching student. Yeah, no, but we're getting there, right, Chuck? So for Win, yeah, and that's another thing, and I love Win and Chuck and everyone who in Martin, everyone who puts in, on especially on these Friday afternoons, right? So when everyone's looking just to get on with their weekend, I love the interaction here because it helps, right? So Win says that he hasn't taken anything since Tesla, right? Since July 1st, which is a unique approach for some people and oftentimes a great approach because you become very knowledgeable, very intimate with one ticker, and you know how it moves and you know how to trade it, right? So definitely an approach that a lot of people take, right? All right, so let's get on to it. So let me make sure, kind of lost track of you. You are looking at the screen of the 5-minute chart here of NVIDIA, correct? Just give me, yeah, cool. Thanks, Win. Okay, so NVIDIA opens up, right? It's a gap down. We already know it's a gap down. It's a retest gap. Well, there's the retest. Boom, retest. That's it. And then it starts to roll. So initial retest. That's it. Out of the gates. Retested the lows from yesterday. I don't have the pre-market on, so but that's okay. Let's just just say that it retested the lows from yesterday and then it rolled, right? But now as it's rolling, I'm watching the markets, and the markets aren't rolling over. The markets were just going sideways. So I'm going, and there wasn't any kind of a catalyst for NVIDIA necessarily to make me think that it was just going to go bearish all day long, right? I'm just going, okay, we're getting a bit of a sell-off. And as I mentioned on looking at the daily chart, why I wasn't surprised that it was going a little bit lower, right? Because on the daily chart, I threw in those fibs. I was expecting it to maybe get down into that 50%, 61.8 area before it went up, which is exactly what it did, right? So it comes down here, throws in, and so again, key thing is I'm looking for volume spikes, right? At the bottom or at the top of a move, in conjunction with a hammer at the bottom, a double bottom with a hammer, and then just flip that for, if it's the top of the move, I'm looking for a shooting star with a volume spike. I'm looking for double top with a shooting star, but the volume spikes are the key, right? So the volume spikes to me are exhaustion selling or exhaustion buying. And another word that I always drop is capitulation, right? They're just running out of steam. That's it. So you get this, and if you notice, right, price, right, nice rollover here, right? And as it rolls over, right, this candle, right, these 3 candles, right, volume is declining, right, and then it declines. And then it starts going back up, and then you start. So on this candle, right, you get an uptick in volume, right? This candle here, it was a lower volume, but then you get an uptick, but then boom, look at that volume spike, right? you always expect the greatest volume in the first 5 minutes of the day, right? That's always, you're always going to see a huge volume spike. So I kind of just discount that, right? But then here you go, boom, big volume spike, and it happened as it was making the low of the day. Then you get this one, right? Now, again, this comes down to what we're talking about, which is analyzing the price action here and the sentiment of these candles, okay? Volume of these two candles, pretty similar, right? Yeah, this one has a little more volume, but still, look at this volume and this volume compared to the previous, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, right? Volume spikes right here, right at the bottom of the move with a hammer, okay? Now, analyze these two candles. You get pretty big bearish candle sell-off. Little bit of buying pressure at the bottom, but not much, right? Just a little bit. But then you get a fairly basically equal amount of volume on the next candle, but then look at this buying pressure, right? So again, for me, the hammer doesn't have to be a bullish candle. It's nice if it is, but it doesn't have to be. So I get a bearish candle, right? Yeah, technically that's a bear candle, but to me it's bullish because look at all that buying pressure, right? At one point, this would have been a big bearish candle. And then bull stepped in and said, no, we're not going to do that. So then what happens? Very next candle. And this is a great combination of candles, all right? A hammer candle followed by almost looks like a perfect doji. Let's see, the open, the close, within 2 cents of each other, right? The open was 418.08. The close is 418.10. So almost a perfect doji right here, right? So what do you get? You get the bull stepping in saying, no, we're not going to go lower. A lot of buying pressure. Then you get this candle, right? And what does this candle indicate? Well, it indicates indecision because nobody won here, right? There is no clear-cut winner. Again, forget the fact that it technically is a bullish candle. Doesn't matter. There is no clear-cut winner in this battle right here, right? The upper and the lower wicks virtually identical, right? Nobody won that. So you get bull stepping in, then battle, and it's an even, and then boom, look at that, right? So our first setup, the very first set, and I canceled it, and it would have been a great setup, was the first setup was after all this happened, and then we got this candle. The first entry was right here. I'm trying to remember exactly, but it was like right there was our first entry with a stop down here. It ended up being as equally a good trade as, once we did get into it, but I'm going to explain to you why I didn't take it initially. So the setup was there, right? And this is what I'm looking for. Chuck, identical, right? That, I mean, it's basically the same term. So Chuck is asking, is exhaustion volume and capitulation similar? They are identical. They mean the same thing, right? It just means, they're just giving up, right? Exhaustion volume in this case was the bears. The bears were there clearly because at one point it was a big candle, and then they couldn't go any lower, and they're like, you know what? Let's leave for the the weekend early, and they all just disappeared, right? So yeah, it's the same. So this candle, right? This is exactly what I'm looking for. A hammer, and not necessarily this right after. Like if I had this candle right after, that would have been just as good. But the fact that you had this hammer followed by indecision, and then you got that, right? So the first step, this is exactly what I'm looking for, is I want a strong close above this level, right? Above right here. Then this came in, and I'm like, boom, that's it. We set it up, entry here, the stop was down here. But then what was happening? Let me show you the reason I paused this at that moment. I'm going to flip to a different screen real quick. At that very moment that I set up that trade and we had that entry, this was happening in the market, right? Now, meanwhile, right? Let's just understand this. This red line right here, right? I have a I have an indicator here who this just immediately shows me what the 30-minute opening range is on the market. And what had happened was we had come down and we threw in two really nice looking hammer candles right at the bottom of the opening range. Then we got this candle, which is uh kind of, is that could be a bullish engulfing candle too. But anyway, we got this candle here after these two, and I thought, okay, that looks great. I'm watching this. I'm watching the chart that we were just, eyeing on Nvidia, and that's why I was thinking, okay, time to go long. But then, as soon as we made that order go live, and I was still trying to type it in. Thankfully, nobody in the room actually executed the order as I was typing it, because this was coming in, and I just said, hey, wait, hold on, pause. Let's not take this yet, because if this easily right here could have been a bull trap, and then, and again, I'm still waiting for the market to pick a direction, and then this gigantic bear candle came in, and so I said, pause, don't execute this order yet. Let's just wait. So it was because I'm watching the broader markets at the same time that I am looking to take a trade on an individual ticker. That's what made me pump the brakes and go, wait, hold on. Let's wait and let's see what happens after this candle. And of course, it ended up being a beautiful bearish trapping candle, right? Because think about how many people would have been lined up under these candles right here, these two candles, and thinking if these lows got broken, the market's just going to roll, right? Perfect bear trap. That is textbook bear trap. And another reason why I don't like taking breakouts. And yeah, and Chuck is saying volume on that bull candle wasn't strong. Oh, on this one, yeah, not a lot of, but this had some pretty decent volume, right? This one did, but this one, you're right, this one not a lot of volume, right? And then boom, we were getting that self. So I was like, all right, pause, let's not take that order, let's not take that trade yet. So let me flip back to Nvidia, and we'll get a little more into this. So would the trade have worked out? Yeah, it would have worked out really nicely. But at the same time, I don't like getting into trades on, I've talked about this, where I don't want to get triggered in on a single momentum candle. So what does that mean? Well, we got this big bullish candle, right? It would have been one thing if we got two small bearish candles coming back to our entry. I would have been okay with that, right? That's a controlled pullback. That's okay. But a big candle like this followed by a big momentum bearish candle, no, I'm not looking to get triggered in on that. At that point, I'm willing just to step aside for a moment and let it play out. Again, if this was two small candles that had come back to our entry, that's one thing. But big momentum candle like that, I don't want to get triggered in on that. So, so I said, let's hold on, let's not do it. So we waited. And now let me also go into, so let's look at this, right? This was at 10 o'clock, this candle. Let's go in, and this was another reason, right? So at 10 o'clock, right? At 10 o'clock, as that was forming, this candle right here hadn't yet formed. This is on the 15-minute chart, right? This was looking pretty bearish at the time, right? So it wasn't really, I was like, you know what? Let's just wait, right? If this is really going to see some, show us some strength, we'll see it. And then, and then we can take the trade. So I just waited to be a little patient. Yeah, this showed me what I was looking for, but then it, like I said, for the reasons I already stated, with that big bearish candle coming in, I was like, okay, let's just hold off and wait. But then once this candle closed, and I was like, all right, that's actually a pretty nice hammer on the 15-minute chart, right? And it had decent volume, not great, right? So if you look here, what would have been better to me is if this was a big volume spike, right? It was decent volume, but it wasn't like a huge, like if you compare this volume to the previous 15-minute candle, candle, not a huge volume spike. So I didn't get the volume spike that I wanted. So at this point I said to the room, I'm like, let's just let us see if this 15-minute chart now can show us the strength that we're looking for. And I said, because I'm not 100% convinced over here on the 5-minute, right? It could have easily, this could, in the markets, again, had yet to pick a direction. We weren't very clear on what the market was going to do. So I said, and then we got this, on the 30-minute. If you can see this on the 30-minute, right? Big selling and then followed by an indecision candle, right? Again, not an ideal with that and with not so great volume, right? So I just wasn't, for these reasons, I wasn't completely sold on it yet. And I said, let's wait. Let's just pump the brakes here. Let's pause. Let's see if, since the 5-minute showed me what I was looking for, but then this candle coming in and what the market was doing made me pause. And then I saw this and I'm like, yeah, it's not really giving me. Normally I want to see a big volume spike here. I'd love to see a hammer here. I wasn't seeing it. I'm like, let's just wait, be patient. So then I said, the 5-minute has already told us we should be looking for some type of a entry to go long. Let's look and wait for the 15-minute chart to show us the same. Now, what's interesting, if you look, yeah, we got that hammer. That's what we wanted, right? It's exactly what I wanted. But then look at the candle that followed it. That's not a confirming candle to go bullish. Again, that is pretty neutral, right? Look at the upper wick, look at the lower wick. Fairly even. So that tells me even after that bullish hammer, there's still a lot of indecision with what's happening. And yeah, confirms a maybe, right? But not exactly the candle I wanted to see following this one, right? That still tells me this could easily have been a bull trap, right? Just an upper wick here, trap everyone, and then roll down. And the fact that it ended the way it did, I was like, you know what? I'm still not convinced. Yeah, Chuck says it doesn't look like a strong buying, but maybe absence of sellers. Yeah, I mean, yeah, whatever the case, this candle was not thrilling me, right? At one point, think about this, would have been a big bear candle down here, right? And the bull stepped in. So you do have buying pressure here, you have buying pressure here, but you also have selling pressure, right? This is a pretty neutral candle. So at that point, I still wasn't convinced. And then, you come back here and this was what, 10:15, and and at 10:15, we still really weren't like rocketing, right? I still had this indecision candle. I wasn't really seeing, what I want to see on the 30-minute chart. But then the next candle, that was it, right? So back to the 5-minute chart here, where we got this confirmation candle after these two candles. When I finally got this candle on the 15-minute chart, that's when I was like, all right. And then also at the same time, the market started to pick up. Let me flip back over to that other screen real quick, right? Just so you can see, what had happened in the market. So by the time that big bullish candle came in on that 15-minute chart, this had already happened, right? This had come and gone. And then we got this one, right? So I'm feeling better about the bullish move, right? Overall, right? This clearly was a lot of buying pressure, and we followed it up with a pretty good bullish candle. And then we got these two candles, but look at the level, right? That held right through here, right? So the bottoms of all of these, the bodies of these candles, the bottoms and this one, that level held beautifully, right? So so all that was happening. This candle had already come and gone. And I felt, okay, the bears are not as strong as I thought when this was happening. So we go back to this, and this candle came in, and that, as soon as I saw that, I said, okay, here we go. Here's our entry. I'm going to throw in a limit buy, right? Down here. And the entry was 419. What we have? 419. I'm sorry, 420.03 was the entry. It's right here. All I have to do is read my own notes, right? Limit buy 420.03. The stop was 417.03. That's kind of hard to see because of the just move this over. Okay. Entry. And again, this candle hadn't happened. As soon as this candle closed, I said, we were watching it. I'm like, as soon as that candle closes strong on the 15-minute, we click and submit the order. And that's what we did. So, yeah. So Sean, yeah, that's right. Sean, you were in there with me. Yep. Beautiful. Sean's still here. Yep. So Sean was in there. And we took I set up a limit buy. I'm like, all right, limit buy right off the top of the body of this candle, the top of the body of this candle, right? Basically. And 403, why 403? Well, I just don't like, I like to step in front of the whole numbers. That's why I chose the 403, right? Perfect entry. That came down. And again, I have to, I'm going back and forth between the 15-minute and the 5-minute chart, right? Because again, I have to say that, back to my previous comment where I don't want to get triggered in on a momentum candle, one candle. Yes, that was happening on the 15-minute chart, but look at it on the 5-minute chart. It was 2 candles, right? So I'm going back and forth between them. And I'm going, okay, well, yeah, here, and this would look like a big bearish candle, even if it was 3 bearish candles in a row. But as long as on the 5-minute, I'm seeing that, controlled pullback, right, to my entry, 1, 2 candles versus 1 big candle, right, to my entry, I'm good with that. So we get triggered in, right? So we're in the trade, stop us down here. And so then I said to the group, all right, we're in the trade. If this candle closes with a hammer, right? If we get a big lower wick, where do we move our stop? And what do you think? Where do you think I move the stop? Right? So if I get that kind of an entry and this level holds, this level here on this bearish candle or bullish candle, if I get that kind of an entry, that you cannot get a better, I mean, I could have, right? The entry, if I get triggered in at exactly 420.03, that would have been even better. But look, that's a pretty perfect entry, right? Win says nailed it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and if you nail that and then it moves in your direction, immediately I move my stop to right here, right? This red line right here. Because so my initial stop was here. My next stop was here, right? And I didn't go to break even yet. I think I went to break even. Then I went to the 5-minute chart. I'll pull that back up. But I did want to show you, focus here on the 15-minute chart initially, where I got in, how we got in, right? That wick, listen, if you can get that kind of an entry, anytime I get that kind of an entry, a lower wick like that, and it immediately goes my direction, I know right where I can move my stop to, right? So moving it to right up into here, I immediately was losing even less than half an hour, right? I moved my stop to a point where even if it reversed and came back down, the market just tanked, I was going to lose certainly less than R, but at this point, less than half an hour, right? And that is the key to trading, is controlling your losses, right? Everyone wants to make money, and we will all make money, but we have to follow our rules, and we have to protect our profits when we're profitable. We have to protect our capital. We have to make sure that we don't allow a winning trade turn into a losing trade. And if you get that kind of an entry, to me, again, the way I look at these 2 candles, right? This was almost buying right out of the gates. If I zoom in a little bit here on this candle, yeah, there's a tiny little wick there underneath, but that basically was buying out of the gates right up until the close of that candle. 15 minutes of pure buying. Yes, there's a little bit of wick up top, not much, right? But I think we can all agree there's nothing but buying there. So when I then get this candle, and that's what triggers me in, and it didn't even get down to the low of this candle. I go, there's no reason. If price breaks the low of this wick, the trade's not going to work anyway. So why am I going to let it come down and take me out for a full R when I can immediately move my stop up into here and I'm going to lose less than half an R? That's the way I approach it. Looks like you took some heat, huh? Chuck, I'm not sure. Took some heat on. You have to explain that a little bit. I'm not really sure. But let's move on. The low of that hammer. Oh, the low of this hammer right here. Yeah, I mean, look, obviously when it was a big bearish 15-minute candle, yeah, that can feel a little uncomfortable, right? When that's triggering you in. But again, the key is looking at it on the 5-minute, and that 15-minute was basically this candle, and this candle, right? These 3 candles. So I got my 2-candle pullback, right? 2-candle pullback to my entry on the 5-minute. I'm good with that, right? So but if this was one big, huge candle on the 5-minute, no, then yeah, I'm not going to, just like when I canceled it here, I'm going to cancel it here, but I didn't. I got 2 candles. And so this one candle here is these 3 candles together, right? So I'm okay. Like if I see a big candle on the 15-minute, as long as a 5-minute chart is doing what I want in terms of a controlled pullback, I'm okay with it, right? So let's jump into the 5-minute chart. So at this point, we can get into the 5-minute, right? So I go, here's where we got, I'm sorry, right here. This is where we got triggered in. And then based on the 15-minute, as soon as this candle came in right here, I was able to move so this, let's see, this would have been the candle that triggered us. I was loving this candle that followed it, right? Because it held that level, it held our entry basically. And then when I got the close above this pivot right here, so once this candle came in and I got a close above this pivot, boom, immediately move my stop below this candle. So now what I'm going to do is I'm using the 5-minute chart, okay, for my trailing stop. So back to and I even put it in the chat at the time. I'm like, hey, everyone, if you want to use your 5-minute 2-bar trailing stop, go ahead and do it. Let me go back. I'm sorry. I missed one critical thing. Okay. Target. Okay. Again, keep in mind at this point, I was after this low here, and then this candle came in. At that point, I was deferring to the 15-minute chart for my confirmation of the trade. In terms of where I needed to take profit, okay, for me, right? Keep in mind, when this is happening, right, none of this price action up here has happened yet, right? So all I can look at is I can just look at this setup and I go, okay, if I get my entry here and my stop down here, where do I have to target, right? I have to look at, even before I can click enter on the trade, I need to be able to look at my reward versus risk and make sure that I can get to a target. A lot of people go high a day, right? But when I see a candle like this, my target is the top of the body here, right? A lot of people go, oh, well, the target is the high of the day. Well, there's a reason that there's a huge upper wick here, right? So my target, and it just so happened that 2R fell in front of it, but my target had to be the top of this hammer. I mean, not hammer, top of this candle, the body of this candle right here. That had to be where I needed to be able to, for me, per my rules, I needed to be able to get a minimum of 1.2 or 1.4 to this level per my rules. And I easily could. As a matter of fact, that's when I noticed that, well, 2R is actually in front of there. So I'm like, forget 1.2, 1.4. I'm going to hold for 2. right? Now, I know there were people who took the trade who like literally on this candle were out because they got their 1.2, and that's cool, right? I'm good with that. And if that's, you know, if you're going into the trade knowing that you're just gonna be taking your 1.2, okay, cool, great. Me, I figured if price can get above this level, this candle here, as I was watching this, if price can get above it, it's going to 2R. So it was just a matter of being patient and exercising that holding muscle and being willing to hold. But I just wanted to make the point that when I set up this trade, I did have to look above here and go, where do I need to be able to get to a target, right? And again, none of this has happened, right? I didn't know it would have been a 4R trade today, but that's where I needed to be targeting, needed to be able to hit a target I wanted to hit by that level there, right? And normally, if I'm approaching a target like that, I will take off, and I've talked about it in the past, I'll take off 90% of my position at that target and then hold the remaining 10. Today, I knew when shortly after I was off the mic at 11 o'clock, I knew I was going to be running errands. I was going to be leaving the house. I was going to be doing stuff with the family. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take all at 2R and see if it hits. Well, let me go back to the 5-minute. Okay. So I guess I could have left that on. The ultimate target, again, was right there for me, right? Because I knew I was going to be leaving, but the 2R target just happened to be right in front of that. So we triggered in. As soon as this candle formed, that's when I was like, all right, we're now making higher highs and higher lows. We broke and we closed above this pivot. Count back 2 candles, 1, 2. That's when I move my stop from here to here. Okay. This next candle formed. Higher high and a higher low compared to this one. Yep. At that point, I think I moved my stop basically to break even, right? Count back 2, 1, 2, whatever the low of this one was. Low 420.03. So there's my, now I'm at break even. This candle, that was down here, right? Off of this candle. Next candle comes in, higher high and higher low. Yep. So now my stop was below, count back 2, 1, 2. Now my stop is below this candle, right? Down here. Very next candle hits my target. So right there. And look how perfectly, right? Now granted, right? This is hindsight. Price ended up, this could have been, I don't know, if that's 2R here, that could have been 3, 4, could have been a 5R trade, right? Had I just sat there and let it run. But it's unrealistic, right? That's sitting here in hindsight, because I'll tell you right now, if I didn't take all at 2R, this pullback would have taken me out anyway. So let's just play that. Actually, would it? Maybe not. Wow, wait a minute. Let's say, I mean, again, I took off everything here at 2R because I was leaving. And when I saw that shooting star, right? And again, shooting star with what? With volume. Look at that, right? Indication to me, okay, running out of steam, right? Doesn't mean it's going to go all the way back down here, back down to, you know, the low of the day, but it does mean, hey, running out of buyers here, right? Running out of steam. It's exhaustion buying at this point. Down here, we had exhaustion selling. Now we've got exhaustion buying, right? We've got that long upper wick. We've got a shooting star, right? There is your volume spike on the 5-minute, right? So it was a perfect time at that moment to get out, right? But let's just play this out, right? Let's say I didn't. Let's say I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit in this trade for the entire day if I can. So let's just play around with that 5-minute. First off, 2R target, great. I'm out. I was happy with it. I had to go, like I said, and do stuff with the family. But let's say I didn't, right? Let's just take the next 7 minutes here that we have together, and let's just see how we would have if right? If I stayed in it. Let's say I took off 90% here. Or let's say I didn't take off anything, but isn't, again, not realistic. But let's say I took off 90%. My stop at this point after this candle is below this candle. So it's going to be down here, right? down here somewhere. This candle would not have taken me out. The low of this candle, 42.30. The low of this candle, 42.30. When I first saw this, I thought, oh, I would have been taken out. No, I wouldn't have, because let's go along with the rules of this 5-minute 2-bar trailing stop. You have to make you have to continue making higher highs and higher lows. We're talking about a bullish trade here, right? So on this candle, count back. It did make a higher high and a higher low compared to here. So yes, count back 2. And now my stop. And basically what I'm doing here, because I also am trading the funded account. If the low of that is 42.20, actually it looks like it's 42.29. 42.29, then my stop is going to be 42.28. I'm giving, for those of you who are trading the funded account, I am giving it 10 cents, right? Because that funded account, if you've experienced it, you can get triggered in and triggered out, even though you don't hit your, whatever number. So I give it a little bit of extra room, 10 cents. So comes down here, and now the next candle, I can't move my stop. I can't move my stop. Now, keep in mind, the next time I can move my stop, I have to wait until I get a higher high and a higher low compared to this candle. I have to stick with this candle until I get the next candle that makes a higher high and a higher low compared to this. So this doesn't count, this doesn't count, this doesn't count, right? This does not qualify. Then you get this hammer in, comes right back down there. And again, the low of that 422.30 would not have taken me out, would have gotten close to my stop, but would not have taken me out. Get a nice hammer right off VWAP, coincidentally, right? Nice little level for it to bounce off of. You get this candle. Now, this candle here. Now I finally make a higher high and a higher low compared to this candle. So I would have had to wait through all this before I can move my stop again. But finally, we get this candle coming in. It makes a higher higher and a higher low compared to this one. Now I can move my stop. Well, probably wouldn't, right? Because this candle and this candle are the same. So I would have left, maybe I would have inched my stop up a tiny bit, but for the most part, my stop remains where it is. Next candle comes in, higher high, higher low. Now my stop would be below here. Next one, did that make a higher high? I don't think so. High of this one was 428.49. 420, nope. So doesn't. So I couldn't do anything. Next candle comes in, boom. Yep. Now I can move my stop, go back 2 candles. This is a higher high and a higher low. 1, 2. Now my stop is here. Right. So at this point, I'm just moving my stop up with, okay, hey, Win, have a great weekend. Enjoy. At this point, I'm just protecting profit, right? I'm not going to let price completely reverse on me. I'm already above 2R. And let's just continue in the next couple minutes to see how this plays out, right? Now I need a higher high and a higher low compared to this one. And then I would have to wait until here, right? None of these qualify. And then this one does, right? So this gives me a higher high and a higher low compared to this. Count back 2, 1, 2, technically. And then, again, at this point, realistically, this is the pivot that normally you wouldn't want to go under. But at this point, I'm above my 2R target. I'm going to be more aggressive with my stop. So go back 2, I'm behind here. Next one, yep. Go back 2, 1, 2. I'm now under this candle. And then finally, this one does not qualify. This one does not. This one qualifies. Go back 2. Now I'm below this candle right here. Makes a higher high, does not make a higher low. So now I'm waiting. This candle right here would have taken me out, right? But look at what I would have done, okay? If that was 2R, let's just, let me just do this. Take this line. If that was 2R, yep, look at that. If actually it's a little bit lower. If I go right to my 2R level with that line, right? I just by using that 2-bar trailing stop right there, I locked in a full R plus, right? This line represents 1R. This line, actually, my stop would have been a little bit lower. So maybe it is exactly, if I'm being realistic with my, 10 cents under. But you get the point that by doing that, I lock in a full other R, right? Now, granted, if let's say I can honestly say I would not have held my full entire position through all that, right? At 2R, let's say I took off 90%, but still holding 10% of my position for another R, I'll take it, right? Nice way to make some extra money. And, I always say, hold on to some runners, let it see what it can do. Now, again, I didn't do that because I had to, hey, Chuck, have a great weekend. Hope you got something out of this today. But enjoy. Hope you have a good one. So you can see, yes, it would have been 10%, but look, I'll take every dollar I can get, right? So holding on to 10% and letting it run just to see how far it can go. I mean, this could have just rampaged. You never know. So anyway, that is one of the reasons why I do like to, when it's applicable, why I like to take off whatever at my target, let's say take off 90%, hold on to 10% and let it see what it can do. All right, let me just real quick. We got 5 o'clock. I think I've got, let me see, Robert Thompson, I believe, is coming in. Let me see if Robert's here. Do not see Robert. Who's? Give me a second. We got 5 o'clock. We got the, oh, wait, Robert's. Oh, no, he is here. Co-host. There we go. Let me, Robert says give him 2 minutes. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to stop this recording. Hopefully you got something out of it, but another just, real good example of analyzing price action and volume. Hope that helps.